So when I decided I was going to try to bring my YouTube channel back from nearly 2 years of relative inactivity, I wasn't really sure how I was going to feel about being on camera again. It had been a while, and even, before I moved away and, my long hiatus, there was a stretch of several months where I wasn't posting a lot of modeling videos. Either because I had run out of steam on doing models of whatever kind or another, or I was talking a lot more about my ambitions to get my firearms license, or there was a lot of paintball stuff in there as well. And, that was never what this channel was started for, but my goal always with this channel was to talk about what I was interested in. And at the time, my interest in modeling had waned slightly in favor of those other hobbies. Now that's only slightly. I was always still into modeling, but once in a while you just kind of need to take a break. This is the longest break I've been on, and I'm happy to be back doing it, and I'm happy to be back in front of the camera. I've gotten a lot of positive feedback. I've gotten a lot of good comments, a lot of people saying, thanks for coming back. A lot of my videos have gotten a lot of hits, and I'm really happy that things are going well. So I do still want to branch out from just doing modeling videos. I've been toying with the idea, no pun intended, of doing toy reviews now and then. In addition to modeling, my other main hobby in terms of collecting is action figure collecting. Mostly Transformers, but a lot of other stuff. So quite a lot of Lego, as I've shown before. Just whatever other kind of action figures kind of catch my interest. There was a stretch where I was buying a lot of Square Enix, the company that makes Final Fantasy and whatnot. They have a sub-line of toys called Play Arts Kai, and I've got quite a few of those. I've got the whole set of Mass Effect figures. I've got quite a few of their Batman, Dark Knight Rises figures, and a lot of their Metal Gear Solid figures. And they've got some issues, but I like them a lot, and I would like to talk about them at some point, just as like a kind of off-the-cuff kind of review. But I'm also considering, I'd like to get some feedback on this, because I don't want to do it if nobody wants to see it. I have been thinking of maybe doing a video series. I want to talk a bit about my gun collection. When I had my ambitions to get my my firearms license here in Canada, you have to have a license to own firearms. I did some videos where I went out with a friend, did some shooting, did some videos where I went out to the crossbow range, but I got my license only a few days before I had to move, so I didn't get a chance to do any videos about shooting since I got my license. But now that I've had it, now that I've got a little bit more time and I've actually got a collection I can talk about, I'd kind of like to. But if nobody wants to see that, then I'm probably not going to. Or I may do like one video and see what kind of feedback I get based on that. But if you're watching this now and you're, no, who cares about guns? Guns are terrible. Guns kill. Guns blah, blah, blah. Send me a message. Tell me that. Or if you're like, hey, cool, yeah, sure, I'd love to hear about your gun collection. We're here to hear about your hobbies. We're here to see what you're into. We're here to hear you blather on indiscriminately for hours at a time about random subjects. Doesn't matter what you're talking about. We just want to see what you have to say about this or that. If you want to see it, I'll do it. If you don't want to see it, I probably won't. Or I might just make a second channel and do it on there. And because whatever, I like to talk about the things that I'm passionate about. And models, toys, Video games to some degree, and paintball, and guns are the 4 things that I'm passionate about. Or 5 things. I can't count. Whatever. Anyway, in this video we're going to talk a little bit about some of the models that I have done recently. I've alluded to wanting to do this not too long ago. I think in my last vlog before I finished my my Lego camper. That was a series I really enjoyed doing, but hasn't gone over so great. So I probably won't do another Lego build-up. I want to talk a little bit about some of the models that I've built recently. You know, recently as in within the last 2 to 6 months, or the last several months, basically since I moved into this apartment. Starting with some of the master grade kits that I have briefly talked about. Some of them I've done unboxing reviews of, like the Heavyarms. You can see right here I've finished it, and I really enjoyed doing this thing. I'm really anxious to talk about that. As well as the Wing Zero, the Wing Proto Zero more specifically, which was a lot of fun to build. But I'll talk a little more at length about my reservations about this particular mobile suit, as well as some of the real grade kits that I've done, such as, you may remember I did the unboxing review of the Shaw Zaku, and I wanted to like this so much. It's not a bad kit, but we'll get to that. So we're going to cut here, and we're going to jump into some of the real grade kits, or some of the master grade kits first, and then we'll do the real grade kits afterwards. I don't even know how many videos this is going to end up being. There's no way I can figure that out until I actually go to edit it. But I'm probably going to, if it ends up being, you know, more than 15 minutes total, I'm going to break it up into like several pieces and release videos, probably 1 a day for the next 3 to 4 days. Because I do need to mention, I am back at work. I was laid off for most of January, but I've been back at work for a little over a week. So I'm not going to have as much time again, unfortunately, to be making videos, to be shooting, but editing I can do while I've got other stuff going on in the background if I'm watching TV or listening to a podcast or whatever. After I get home from work, if I have the footage already recorded, I can very easily edit that when I get home. So yeah, we're gonna cut here, and we're gonna jump into some of that stuff. So you may remember from when I did my unboxing review of this kit just how excited I was to get my hands on it. I'd been trying to find one locally for probably close to a year with no success. In fact, most of the Gundam Wing master grade kits have been really difficult to find, either in Edmonton or in Victoria. None of the shops that I know of would ever seem to have them, and then I just happened to find one randomly, so I picked it up immediately. And I'm really, really thrilled with this thing. I do very much wish that it was in the movie colors, the blue and teal on gray, but even so, it looks really cool in the bright orange. You can see it's got the opening shoulder armors, the opening chest cannons. The back panel also flips open, but I prefer to leave that one closed. I like the idea that the movie version is an upgraded version. Clearly it has the bigger Gatling cannon than this one does, so it makes sense that they would have added additional missiles. So likewise, when displaying it, I keep the skirt armor missile pods closed. I like the implication that those would have been added later on. I did consider not including this second leg pod, because in the TV series version, the Heavyarms has only the one pod on each leg, and it is possible to leave the bottom one off, and it doesn't really affect the aesthetics of the mobile suit. But I wanted to assemble it completely, and then I thought maybe I would take the second pod off later, but I just never got around to it. Coming around the back, you can see the ammo chute looks really, really cool. It's got this. I talked about the sleeves covering the cable forming the ammo chute, and it sags really realistically. It circles around from the ammo drum to the Gatling cannon itself in a very realistic way. I think it's a really attractive design. The weapons can fairly easily be detached. The shield simply attaches to the forearm, and then the Gatling cannon itself pegs into the hand. Instead of having articulated fingers, it simply has detachable finger blocks. So you got a standard hand for gripping, a standard fist, open hands, etc. So with the Gatling cannon now detached, you can get a better look at it from the 360 perspective. Maybe get a better look at the skirt missile pods on the front and the sides, which both open up. You can get a good look. That's not supposed to come off. But you can see there's the missile pods on the skirt armor side and on the front. So truly this thing is very heavily armed. In terms of articulation, it's got standard polycap jointed hips, double jointed knees. It has an articulated knee armor, so it will shift as the knee bends. And the knee does have a very deep bend. I'm very impressed with that. Standard torso ball joint. I'm surprised there's a bit of an ab crunch, but not a very significant one. I guess it would be difficult because it does have a very bulky torso. There's the option to have the combat knife mounted to either forearm, really, but it just simply detaches very easily. Elbows, like the knees, have double joints. Not quite as deep bending, but that's mostly due to the very bulky shoulder armors. Wrists, ball joints. Bicep swivels, shoulder swivels, and some, I call it clavicle movement. I'm not really sure what you call it, but it's actually got some pretty deep movement there. The head is on a ball joint on a hinge. So you can get good look up, pretty good look down, and free movement from side to side. You can get some pretty good expression out of it. The backpack has the 4 boosters on it, and it can mount the Gatling cannon in stowed configuration, if I can figure out which way to attach it. I should probably have futzed with this earlier. There it goes. And the ammo chute popped loose, but you can see it fits quite well on the back. And the ammo chute is flexible enough that you can wrap it around and it'll attach quite nicely. And then the shield can either mount directly to the Gatling itself or can simply mount on the Gundam's forearm. I'm popping the arm off here so that I can show how to attach the beam saber segment, which I referred to in a previous video. I'll actually give you a bit of a look at how this arm goes together. It's not overly complicated. But there you can see, if you want to recreate Hiro Yui's duel with Zex Marquise and the Tall Geese, you can very easily pop that beam saber, just replace the arm entirely. I think there's probably supposed to be a polycap in there somewhere, or I might have done something wrong, because that joint is a little bit loose. Actually, it's extremely loose, and I'm not sure why. But it's a neat additional feature. Curiously, this kit does not include a beam saber blade, so it can't actually wield that beam saber. I mean, it can carry the hilt in its hand, but it can't actually ignite it. I always have a spare beam saber blade kicking around, though, from all the other Gundam kits that I've built. So that is the Heavyarms. I was not that enthusiastic about the Proto Zero when I first started seeing pictures of it, because it's really not the Wing Zero. It is what it's referred to. It's the Proto Zero. This is not the Wing Zero as it appears in the show. I've tried to do some research. I haven't been able to figure out exactly what the Proto Zero represents, but I'm inclined to believe that that it's the prototype that was never built of the Wing Zero that was the basis for all the 5 Gundams within the Gundam Wing universe. The continuity of Gundam Wing is that the first mobile suit was the Tall Geese, and then based on that design, the Wing Zero was designed, but it was never built because it was too powerful. It had a computer system that was too complicated. It had an interface that was too complicated, and it was very dangerous for the pilot. So it was never actually manufactured and remained in blueprint form for decades until the design was captured by the 5 Gundam scientists, and they refined it into the 5 Gundams that appeared within the show. So I'm inclined to believe that that's what this is supposed to represent. This is the prototype for the Wing Zero that was never built. The differences between them, the most obvious difference being the wings. These ones are much more angular. You can see they're... I don't even know how to describe it. They're... I don't even know how you would describe how these wings are different from the other ones, but they're just different. They're more angular. Overall, just in general, the Wing Zero from the series is much rounder in places. The torso, for example, the shoulder armors a little bit, and especially the wings. They're very much more round, and I hesitate to say organic. Versus this design, which has much more harsh angles. Not to say that I dislike it. It was a really fun build, and it turned into a really unique design, and I find it really attractive. But it's still not my Wing Zero. It does come with the base, so you can display it in flight or in space. And it is compatible with Bandai's Action Base series. So if you have one of those, there's a little socket that attaches to the lower waist, and you can attach it that way. Either in mobile suit mode or in Neo Bird mode. This mobile suit actually does transform. But we'll talk about that shortly. Articulation-wise, it's similar to the Heavyarms. A little bit better in places. You've got your standard hips, same as the Heavyarms does. You got your standard double jointed knees, but these actually give, surprisingly, an even deeper knee bend and more armor parts that keep popping off. These front skirt armors, I'll talk about them a little bit later. But you can see that is a seriously deep knee bend, much more so even than the Heavyarms had. You got multiple joints in the ankles, partially because of the transformation, but also jointed toes. The whole foot itself can tilt up, but the toes themselves just tilt down. Like the Heavyarms, it does have an articulated knee armor part that does shift as you bend it. I've always loved that feature on Gundam suit models. It has a much deeper ab crunch. It's got a good waist joint, ball joint, and the ab crunch itself is much freer than the Heavyarms. Probably so it can do the signature last shot pose. Holding the twin buster rifle out in front while falling backwards through the atmosphere and blasting the enemy space station. I'm going to pop the gun out of the hand so I have a little bit more freedom to work around. I'm going to take the shield off as well. Standard arms, double jointed, articulated thumb, 4-finger block, same as the Heavyarms had. Good bicep swivel. Good movement on the shoulders. The shoulder armors themselves are also articulated. They can pop open here, and you've got a little thruster that can pop up from underneath. And also they pop open, and that's where the beam saber blade hilts are stored. Head and neck, similar to the Heavyarms, a little bit more restricted in backwards motion, but very free going forwards and left to right and side to side. The wings, where the Wing Zero gets half of its name, are tremendous. They can move in every direction. Very strong freedom of movement, multiple points of articulation allowing multiple axes of movement, and the wings themselves are linked together so that when you flip one side open, the other side will flip open. It's a little bit stiff. I haven't played with them too much, so I haven't really freed them up very well, but you can see there's kind of a linked hinge inside behind this white armor panel. You probably can't see it very well at all, but you can see that that opens and closes in unison. It looks really, really good. It has an opening cockpit, so you can see the pilot inside. I don't have the pilot inside. I usually don't put the pilot figure in the cockpit because why bother unless you're going to display the cockpit open. You're never really going to see it. Heavyarms also has an opening cockpit in the chest I forgot to show off. As I mentioned, this one does transform. I've actually never transformed it before, so I'm going to see if I can figure this out without having to resort to instructions. It seems to be kind of one of those, you know, it's transformed because we said it's transformed modes. Not so much an actual legitimate mode of any sort. It doesn't really look like any kind of plane I've ever seen. So I'm sure there's some kind of minor step that I missed or something to do with the legs. They feel like they want to do more than this. But that's the basics of the Neo Bird mode. Essentially, you rotate the waist 180 degrees, you bend the knees a little bit backwards, you flip the head around 180 degrees, you mount the shield on the backpack and the guns on the shield, and you've got yourself what passes for a flight mode. It's acceptable because the Zero operated mostly in space. These wings I don't imagine would generate a lot of lift, so it probably wouldn't be very effective in an atmosphere, but in space I'm sure it would work out just fine. So that's the Wing Zero. It's a really nice kit. I still wish that it was the TV series version, but for what it is, I like it a lot. This is the Geara Doga from Shaw's Counterattack. It's the Neo Zeon standard basic grunt infantry mecha. The mecha design in Shaw's Counterattack was done largely by Yutaka Izubuchi, who is most famous for the series Patlabor, which I've seen a couple of the movies, the animated movies. And in fact, I think there's a live-action movie coming out very soon. And if you were to hold up some of Izubuchi's Gundam designs, meaning his designs from Gundam, not necessarily the actual Gundam mobile suit designs, and compare them to some of his Patlabor designs, you'd be able to see, oh yeah, these are very clearly by the same guy. For example, the Sazabi and the Kampfer from Shaw's Counterattack and 0080, respectively, are very clearly by the same designer as Pat Labor. Anyway, this one here, it's you can see it's got a very similar design ethic to the Zaku. It's got the mono eye, the squat flat head, the bulky sort of proportions, the shield on the right shoulder, the spiked shoulder armor on the left arm, and just overall very thick, very squat proportions, as well as the all these power cables hanging off of the body all over the place. Really give it kind of a Zaku descendant look to it. I really, really like it. It has two different types of beam weapons. There's the standard beam saber, and then and it can also be configured as a beam axe. I believe they refer to it as a beam tomahawk. Which they're both pretty cool, but I will always prefer the beam saber look. This is one seriously heavily armed mobile suit. This thing comes with a virtual arsenal of weapons. In addition to the beam saber or beam tomahawk, whichever you prefer, mounted to its standard left arm shield, it has 4 rocket launchers, similar to the German Panzerfaust. I believe in Gundam they refer to these as Sturmfaust rockets, disposable, single-use, single-tube rocket launchers that were very common with Izubuchi designs. The Kampfer carried them. Several other designs from 0080 carried them as well. Because there's so many parallels between Zeon and Nazi Germany, and of course the mecha design itself. Just look at that head. That is a German World War II era Wehrmacht helmet. You know, upgraded for the Universal Century era. Just in general, I mean, Zeonic mobile suit designs, they carry a lot of German words, a lot of German designs, names. But in addition, though, to the shield and the beam saber, it has 2 different beam rifles. I can't remember what does what. But this one has an underslung rocket launcher. And this one is more of a submachine gun style. I can't remember what either one of them is called. They're very neat. It's currently displayed with the same type of hands as the Wing Zero and the Heavyarms had, just with the single articulated thumb and then the 4-finger block, but it does include an optional articulated hand set with a ball-jointed thumb and individually ball-jointed and separately articulated at the second joint fingers. You're not going to get a lot of use out of these unless you're just doing kind of like a splayed fingers reaching out for a target kind of a pose, or you know, kind of a holding someone at bay while you know, beam sabers off behind him. He's just kind of got the hand out in front, kind of a pose. So I've displayed him just with the standard non-articulated hands. I'm really not surprised that Bandai has been moving away from the articulated hands, to be perfectly honest. Because you can get more detail out of a fixed pose than you can out of an articulated hand anyway. So I'm going to pop the beam saber out while we take a look at the model itself. Standard, same as everything else. It's got the standard ball joint, or not ball jointed, but polycapped hips. I have to say, I've been really impressed with Bandai lately. I mean, look how bulky that leg is, but it still gets such a deep knee bend. It doesn't have an articulated armor part, but there is a separately articulated little linkage under piece of armor underneath the main knee, which really, I really like the way they do that. It really adds an extra layer of depth. There's also an articulated armor part here to now allow a much deeper ankle bend. Ankles are ball jointed, and there is a hinge in there as well, so they've got lots of free movement. Front and back, side to side, and there is also a separate hinge in the toe. Waist rotation, and some side to side. Not crazy great, but for such a bulky mobile suit design, you can't really blame them for not being able to get much more than that. There is no ab crunch to speak of. The cockpit on this one, let's see if I can fish that thing open. It's a double opening panel, so there's the bottom panel and then the top hatch that locks over top of it. Head, left and right, some up and down, some expressiveness to side, not much to speak of, but you can pop the top off and pose the mono eye however you like. You can pose it from left to right. So that makes up for the head's inability to turn left or right very much. Shoulders standard, fairly good rotational movement, standard universal joints in the shoulder, and front and back, up and down movement. There's actually a really neat mechanical bit in there that you might be able to get a look at as the shoulder moves forward and backward. So that's pretty cool. And then you got some decent elbow. You know, you wouldn't be able to get much more of a bend than that due to the design of the shoulder armors, because they the thrusters impede the arms anyway. So you really wouldn't be able to get much better than that no matter what you did. And you got some mild skirt articulation on the back to allow for greater range of movement in the legs. You've got some weapon stowage in the side skirts. I don't have anything in there, but these panels do open up and you can fit in, I think, a couple of grenades and magazines for the guns. And the front skirt armors, standard full articulation. They're much better than the Wing Zeros in that they don't pop off when you move them around. So that is the Geara Doga.